What is going on, my friend? It is Danny here from projectmanaverse.com, real world technical project management for beginners. And today I'm going to talk about the master test plan. I'll explain what it is. I'll say why you should care about this as a project manager, and then I'll go into some of the specifics about the actual master test plan. So let's jump in. What is a master test plan? Well, in project management, there are test plans and there are test plans, and the master test plan is the latter. It is done at the start or pretty much near the start of the project, and it gives an overview of all the testing you're going to do in the entire project. It will break it all down, it will cover everything. It doesn't go into the specifics and all the detail. That will be done by specific test plans for the particular test phase, but the master test plan covers everything. And why is it important to you as a project manager to understand the test plan and what it's all about? Well, I think it sort of speaks for itself. Testing is so important for projects, especially technical projects, because you've got to really test your software or whatever you're building before it goes out to your end users. Because if you don't thoroughly test it and try everything, try and break it, try and do all the processes that it needs to do, test all the functionality, make sure it marries up with the underlying business processes or the processes that are supposed to be running with it in conjunction. If you don't test all that, you can have big problems when it goes out to the end users, and that is not a good thing if you spent a year delivering a project, creating something or upgrading something, and it doesn't work. And your testing, so your test plan is really important to make sure you are doing it right. Your test plan is a control to make sure you are thinking about it thoroughly and getting things in place, because you can't just do the testing phases on the fly as you go. You need to plan it carefully in advance. You've got to think about what test environments are required and get those lined up in advance. You need to think about all the resources that are required to do the testing, to make sure they're going to be available, to make sure your testing phases don't clash with other really busy periods of the company, especially if you're doing end user testing. When the business start to use the application, you want to get them involved to test the application. If they have their business as usual to do, you don't want to coincide your testing phases with their critical business periods. So you need to plan out the resources carefully when it's all happening. You need to marry it up with other things that are going on in the organization, and you may have only certain windows where you can use a test environment. So it all has to be carefully planned in advance. And the master test plan is that control at the start of the project, which gets you thinking about all the testing that you need to do throughout the project. And it plants the seed so you can start ticking off the actions that need to happen ahead of those testing phases. So I've spoken about what the master test plan is, and I've told you why it's important. So let's now go into the specifics of the master test plan. I've got a big list to run through here. So the master test plan is it's a big document. It will be different for every company. Every company will have their own version of it, but it's going to be a big document with lots of information in there. Now, usually your test manager would create this document for you. That's usually how it's done. But if the project is slightly smaller or you don't have the funding for a test manager, you might have to do it yourself. It's not rocket science. You can figure it out. And my advice is, if you have to do your own one, try and find a master test plan that has been done by another project. Just use that as your template, and then you can just cut and paste just change and edit the things that are related to your project. But the actual structure of the document and some of the kind of gumph that goes in there can just stay the same. So at least you've got a starting point. So I recommend doing that. Now, what's in the master test plan? So there's always a little bit of blurb at the start of the document about what the project is doing, what's the purpose of the project. Again, you can usually pull that from other documentation that exists. Your design or your business case has probably got something in there already. You can just cut and paste into your master test plan. There'll be lots of diagrams in there about the IT landscape that you're doing. If you've got any of those, again, from early design documents or early scope documents, you can import those in. You should have on there what the purpose of the document is. You should have in there all the people that need to be involved in looking at that document. Are they just a reviewer or are they a sign-off? If they're a sign-off, make sure they are engaged, those stakeholders, in terms of how the progress of that master test plan is going, when they are going to need to sign it off, when they're going to get a first draft to have a look at, and how much time they have to provide feedback and all that kind of good stuff. Always makes sense to have a bit of a walkthrough of the document with those stakeholders, because when you just send people documents, they can get lost in inboxes. But if you actually put a meeting in the diary with those stakeholders and walk through the document, they've got their chance to ask questions as you're going through it, and it gets them engaged. So now they know they need to come back to you and sign off the document by the deadline. So you should have in there a track changes table. So if you make any amends to the document once it's gone out for review and sign off, you can document that so you've got strong change control around the document. Also, as you're going through your testing throughout your project lifecycle and you're going through the different testing phases, you want to make sure that any changes to the original plan is reflected and updated in the master test plan, so all your documents are aligned across the lifecycle of the project. Very good housekeeping. What else do we have in here? So, of course, the key element of the master test plan is the scope of the testing. So it can be high level at the moment, but you do want to include all the testing that's going to be done in the project. So all the components, all the applications. You might have a project to upgrade a system, but it might not just be that thing you are testing. If there's any downstream testing that you need to do, any upstream testing, you want to get all the testing included, any reconciliations, get it all in there, list all the applications and all the processes that you're going to be covering as part of your testing. And then you want to include how are you going to break that up? How are you going to put that into testing phases? What are the individual testing phases? Make sure that's all covered in your test plan as well. So what is in scope, make that very clear. Also, you want to make sure you include any key things that are out of scope for your test plan. So any things that people may assume you're doing or would usually expect you to do, make sure it's in the out of scope section, and you've got some rationale as to why you're not going to be testing that. There might be some good reason for it. It's just very low risk or whatever. So, or it could be being done by someone else, a different project that's not in your scope. Just make sure that's in there, so when that document goes out for sign off, everyone's aware of what is being tested and what is not being tested. Make sure you've got the key owners of the testing in there. So you might have the application owners in there, and then the actual testing, the testers, who's going to be doing it. Is it people in the business? Have you got offshore resources doing the system testing? Who's going to be doing the non-functional testing? So make sure you've got all the key stakeholders and who they are and who's going to be doing each phase of the testing. General roles and responsibilities is probably good to have in that same section. So who's doing the testing and what are they responsible for? Are they responsible for raising defects or fixing them, or are they going to be fixed by a different team? All that good stuff. And then governance, you might want to have a bit about the governance of the testing. That needs to be some governance principles that should be applied to all the testing phases is probably a better way to do it. So things like making sure there's clear entry criteria and exit criteria for every testing phase. Things like the defect severity criteria. What's a SEV 1? What's a SEV 2? How critical are the defects? And any general processes that should be adhered to in terms of you've got to use this defect management software, you've got to have a triage call and any regular meetings that you should have throughout the project life cycle when you're dealing with testing. And that is pretty much everything. Just going back to the point about governance, you might, and I said exit criteria, you might want to have just a general, how do we know when everything is tested and we're ready to go live with this, just that in there as well, so make sure everything is covered. So that's pretty much the master test plan. Now what I like to do, you'll have this in a big document, but what I like to do on my projects is have a almost like a one-pager version of that. Now these documents can be quite big and you might think, how can you get it one page? But when I say one page, I just mean the real key elements, like what systems, it's almost like a scope in a page for your testing. So what systems are you testing? what test phases are you doing? What kind of testing? Is it system testing? Is it unit testing? All the key phases, maybe all the key environments on there that you're going to be doing those phases in. All that key information on one page on a dashboard is really, really useful. And if you can have that at your fingertips, it really makes your life easier, and you will be able to answer questions about testing much quicker rather than trying to sift through a big master test plan. So I like to do that. That's an optional thing, but I do recommend that. It's one of the things I like to do alongside the plan on a page, which is my favorite tool for project managers. Okay, so that is it. That is the master test plan. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and if you want to see more videos like this one, hit that subscribe button. I'm doing daily videos all about technical project management, so if you are new to technical project management, I highly recommend you tune in every day, and over a few months time you'll certainly get to know all the basics about IT technical project management. And until tomorrow, please take care.